So welcome to the second episode of our podcast, which is about culture, EVP and leadership. Today brings us all the way to Nottingham in Nottingham College to meet the lovely Janet Smith. She's going to tell us a little bit about herself and then we'll get into the questions. So Janet, tell us about you.
Well, I'm Janet Smith. I'm the CEO and Principal of Nottingham College. It's the culmination of a long career in FE. It goes right back to 1986. I'm incredibly old. I've been a principal before over in Lincolnshire and Cambridgeshire. And before that, every single role, right from part-time lecturer all the way up. With 9 years out in HE and a couple of years out in a government body type role in a region, actually, the east of England.
Education absolutely through and through to your very core. I'm sure you bleed a textbook at this point.
Well, yeah. So, a small commercial career before that, actually in the real world, but it was only a couple of years.
So you've been in FE for over 30 years.
Yeah, nearly 40.
And so within the world of further education, how long have you been a leader for?
Well, do you know, I think I've been a leader all my life. I don't think it started in FE. And one of the reasons is I watch my little granddaughter, who seems to have got a lot of my genetics. And she's quite bossy. She leads all the other kids. She's a driver. She's an achiever. And I always was that at school, even though I come from very humble beginnings, really. I started life in a council estate up in the northeast. So my lot was never really to become a CEO of any organisation. I've kind of bucked the trend, but I think I was that sort of born leader. Perhaps not everybody is that, but I think I am. And so even if you go back to the start of my career, when I was a teacher, I definitely felt I was leading a group of students. I was marshalling them to do the right things, to learn stuff, to pass exams. And I felt a responsibility attached to that as well. And I just loved it. That
innate ability to lead from a very early doors, from the council estate to the classroom. And although it's not one of the questions, what subject is it you taught early doors? I
actually trained to begin with when I was young as a secretary because I was a girlie in the northeast in the 70s. So it was, would you like to be a secretary or a hairdresser?
You had two choices.
Work in a library. Our careers visits were to things like the library and British Home Stores. And I was actually banned from going to the local engineering company because some men might swear near me. And I thought, oh, hang on, I'm growing up in a council estate in the north.
I've heard it once or twice before.
I have been exposed to that before, but literally we weren't allowed. I wanted to study tech drawing. I wasn't allowed to do that. I had to do needlework. I would have much more enjoyed studying a different subjects, but I was actually banned, and sexism was completely rife.
1970s.
So I trained as a secretary, and consequently the first thing I ever taught, the first class I ever went in to teach was shorthand. But I also taught business studies. This was an element of that. And also as a secretary, because this is a bit of a long story, but I started working in the county court in Darlington, quickly nailed that job and then got bored. And I, at only age 20, moved down to London.
Oh, the big smoke.
Yeah, which is a long way from the northeast. My dad had kittens at the thought of me doing it.
Can only imagine.
He was very worried for me, but I was just bored, and that's another defining feature. I just move when I'm bored. So I went down to London, and I actually came across technology in the office for the first time. So this would be 1982, so it's a long time ago.
We're just past typewriters at this point, aren't we?
Yeah, it was that word processors were coming in, so I started to use computers. And when I went to do my degree, I did more of that. And so I taught shorthand, business studies and IT. And from that got into a career that was more computing-led than business-led.
Which took us all the way through.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. How did you get from teaching? Was business at an FE college? Or this is how we got into FE.
Yeah, I'll tell you. Well, I knew I wanted to do it. And when I was in my final year of my degree and I was writing my dissertation, I decided to do it on how IT was coming into the teaching of business studies. And went, as part of my primary research, went out to talk to a whole host of different colleges about how they were starting to embed IT in their teaching. And my local college, which at that time was North Lindsey College in Scunthorpe.
Scunthorpe,
I've lived
yeah.
in all the exciting
yeah.
parts of the country.
Currently DN Colleges Group, yeah.
Yeah, so I went to teach shorthand and business studies there, but only because the union had a work to rule strike on. And when I went in there to do my interview and said I'd got a place on a PGCE, I wanted to teach, and FE was my natural home because I was skills-based learning to that point. I never did A-levels. They said, would you like to come? And they were so desperate. They wanted someone who came to interview them for a dissertation. And they let me loose, and I literally walked into my first evening class teaching shorthand, never having taught before, no teaching qualification, and I look back and think, what a brass neck I must have had.
I don't think it's changed much to this point.
It just felt natural and right, and I was really excited by it, and I properly prepared for it. And I think I'd had the benefit of some absolutely excellent teaching myself as a student, so I just brought all that forward, carry that forward.
Learn behaviours, right? If you've got a really good teacher in your classroom
you pick it
and
up.
they put it across, like you remember, everyone as a young person will remember those teachers. And arguably any age will remember that really good, passionate, motivated teacher. The ones that you see at Nottingham College, I see quite a few of them. They come across so well, and then you take naturally the style from them and implement it. You forget. I think teachers forget they're teaching teachers, or future teachers anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what are you stuck here? Is it Stockholm syndrome? Why have you stayed in further education?
Because we do such an important job, and when we've talked a bit about my politics and what matters to me, and that the social aspect of FE is really critical. We literally change lives. Look at me. I'm the perfect example of somebody who had a very humble start in life, and I've only got where I am because I could access learning and education that took me out of that setting and gave me opportunities, gave me qualifications. And I want to give that back to everybody who doesn't have the best start in life as well. And not that FE just caters for that, because we don't. We have plenty of people for whom we're an absolute first choice, and people build their careers from perfectly nice backgrounds and easy home lives and everything else. But we change lives in FE. And to me, that is the absolutely critical thing that we do as a sector that sets us aside from everybody else.
I call colleges communities because there are, in I don't know many other settings where you can come in, you can be given an array of options that are both pastoral, technical, you get given work opportunities, CV writing. There's no place like a college for a young person to meet peers at a similar level. And it'll be at a high level as well, because your students are all mixed in. There's a melting pot of potential achievement, capacity, growth. There's so many things that colleges do that you don't get elsewhere. And when you look at a college, you typically find them in the community. Now, Nottingham College is a sprawling college. There's 6 campuses, so you can't tell me that it's not entirely embedded in the community. I drove from the train station this morning to here, and I saw two of your campuses. You are meeting the learner where they are, and providing them with an opportunity to take those skills. And there's very few others like a college that can do what you can do with everything else. And the business links, certainly with Ofstet's agenda to push more for employee relations, which Nottingham has massively taken and brought further forward. You give people that pathway to work. And I think good work, I don't know if you agree with this, but doing good work will change your life. Being somewhere where you can progress and learn, absolutely.
We do a lot more than teach here. We do a social job. But we teach people all sorts of behaviours and attitudes, and we do a lot. We've won awards for what we do on social action. So we are very much here in and of our community, whatever that is. And not just us as a college, but our students as students at our college. So we're very linked into all sorts of social action projects. We've just gone global recently because we're doing something about Gen Z being absolutely terrified of phones, which I didn't even know was a thing. But our staff are meeting that, and employers are telling us it's a problem. And we put training in to help students cope with using a telephone, because they will have to do that at work.
Take it from an employer that entirely works on the telephone.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know recruitment, but we only use a phone. And we are seeing this next generation of people that will hold a phone and say, someone's calling me, what do I do?
Yeah.
Or I spoke with one of our clients the other day, 15-minute pep talk to get his daughter to put a complaint into something because it involved the phone. And I was thinking, they need these skills. These are communication skills. Now they're on their phones 5 hours a day, 4 hours a day. They need the skills that the phone has to present. So that's amazing that someone's recognised that, because I thought it was just me thinking, why can't they use telephones?
Oh, no, we've not only recognised it, we've done something about it. We've put training in for students.
And that's the skill, is recognising the problem and trying to solve it. So what advice would you give to someone, not yourself, someone else, someone fresh, about getting into FE? What's it going to look like to them? What are they going to expect to experience?
You can come into FE in any job at all. Right from a security guard, a catering assistant, learning support staff, finance people. Every conceivable role exists here, because, and I talk about this a lot, we have to think of ourselves whole college. It's not just teachers coming in to teach. If all of the jobs aren't working, then the college isn't working. So later on, I know you want to talk to me about culture and where we're taking the organisation, and why people might even want to work in a college and specifically here. But one of the reasons is that we care about all of our staff, because we care about all of our students. And if we're doing the job for them, we teach them well, they get their qualifications, they progress. But we also make them more rounded individuals with a whole skill set way beyond anything they come in with. We give them something that a lot of them arrive without. And this is a product both of being young, and for some of our students, they're very difficult starts in life. We give them confidence, a sense of self-belief. And often if a student comes in and they've had a difficult start in life, they have a torrid time at school. They're on the back foot from the minute they start their education life. When they come to us, we can reverse some of that negativity, and we can make them believe in themselves, demonstrate that they can achieve, they can build skills. They are a valuable future employee for somebody, and that's important.
So get into FE, because your work will matter more.
Whatever you do.
And whatever you do, no matter what you do, there's a space and a home for you at Nottingham College and other colleges in the country.
But if you're a teacher and you want to come in and teach with us, then having some skill or subject at your disposal, whether it's one gained in industry over many years, or you've studied it at an A-level and done a degree in it, it almost doesn't matter. You can join an FE college and come and teach, and we will train you to teach.
It's one of the myths.
I
like to bust, right? So for those that are listening, and most of you should know or will know, that if you want to get into FE, there is no requirement for a teaching qualification from day one. There's a requirement that you are willing to work towards one, and it should be a level 4 or above. But if you have never taught and you want to know what teaching is, Nottingham College and other colleges will have programmes that will welcome anyone with a industry background, ideally qualified to level 3, but speak to us anyway. And we can give you the skills you need to teach. You just have to bring, for me and probably for you, some passion, some energy, and the willingness to see better for others, I suppose. But what would you say they need to be a teacher at the Nottingham College?
I think they need to care. They need to care about their students. They need to want them to do well. They need to come in with enthusiasm and passion for their subject and want to hand that on and see the next generation of people through into worthy careers, good, fulfilling lives.
If that resonates with you, you can definitely check out Nottingham College's careers page. Certainly I'll be looking shortly with that level of passion. So we move on to the second part of the podcast. It comes in a few parts. We're going to talk a lot now about culture and values. Next, we will talk about EVP and then leadership, which is more for you than for the college, but I'm sure that many of your leaders will emulate that. What you're going to expect to hear here is a lot about Janet's view on the beliefs that work and how these systems are installed. And I'm super excited for the next question. So, in as simple terms as possible, can you distill Nottingham College's culture and values for me?
I think it's probably best wrapped up in our mission statement that didn't come from me, it didn't come from governors, it came from staff. When I arrived, we had an existing strategic plan and mission statement that was something crafted by a group of consultants somewhere along the line. It sat in a drawer.
Expensive consultants.
I don't know. I imagine so. But it certainly didn't live and breathe, and it had no traction with staff at all. So one of the things that I did early doors was took all the staff off-site, and we started thinking about our purpose. Why are we here? What do we seek to do? What words do we want to use to describe ourselves? What values do we want to exhibit and live by and teach our students? And it was a massive exercise because Nottingham College is big. We're one of the largest colleges in the country, 85 million big currently. With
85 million big, you've heard it here, pretty big.
Not a small college. And that, for me, scaling up from my last college, that's around about a £50 million college, we could get all our staff into a venue and talk to them and involve them. You can't here, it's too big. So we actually took over Notts County Football Club, their entire banqueting suite, which is 4 massive rooms.
Huge.
Which we took over 4 rooms in the morning, 4 in the afternoon. But through those sessions, we got all staff out and we asked them, we talked around, what do we see ourselves as being here for? And we distilled down, obviously 1 million bits of paper came in off that, but we still distilled it down to the 10 key things, and then we'd ask staff to craft missions, think about what the words would look like. And eventually we voted on the top 10, and staff, in fact, it was an outstanding vote for this, and it landed into a mission that's 5 words long, and it is, we unlock potential through learning. And I think that's us. That is us. It's the best mission in FE as far as I'm concerned. It doesn't matter what your starting point is. It doesn't matter where you're aspiring to go. It doesn't matter whether you're an apprentice, a young person, an adult, an HE student, or someone on a community learning programme, or a migrant person who's come in from Ukraine without a word of English. We unlock potential through learning. That's us. That's our ethos. That's what we do.
And that is a defining statement. It's unequivocal.
It's brilliant.
You can't misinterpret it. You can't give it a specific agenda other than what it's intended for its intended purpose. And it captures your imagination. You've got so much in there.
It's fabulous.
It's such a short distance of words.
Yeah.
And I imagine that to those that are about to or will be thinking about this process, that sounds like a Herculean effort from the college.
It was worth every minute we put into it because we live by our mission, by our statement. We also, as part of it, pulled out 10 strategic objectives that I make every decision by. Everything we do as a college is filtered through those objectives. So it lives and breathes, and we report back to staff on it. The really funny story about the We Unlock Potential Through Learning, our mission statement, is that I had no idea where it had come from because there were 9 sessions, 1,500 staff, and it was just one thing that had been written on a piece of paper by somebody during that process.
And you voted on it to choose it? It was voted by the 1,500 staff to choose that?
Yeah, we chose it as a college. And at the end of every year, I do a roadshow and I go out to all of our 6 campuses and I do a sort of, this is where we're at and this is where we're going. And usually this is what we're thinking about pay, which is my incentive to people to turn up to my roadshows. So they do. But I asked at all of the roadshows at the end of my first year, if you came up with this, put your hand up, because I will personally buy a bottle of champagne for the author of this, because I think it's absolutely brilliant. And it was the 7th roadshow, a hand went up, and it was one of our science lecturers who had come up with that phrase, sitting in Notts County Football Club's banqueting suite, looking at the college's purpose. So yes, he got his bottle of champagne.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah, he did.
You might not know the answer to this. How long had they been at the college?
Do you know, I don't know. Yeah. I never asked him that, but a lot of staff have been here for a long time through some very traumatic years as well, years of many mergers. And a great difficulty, which I'm no doubt we'll get onto when we talk about culture and why we are where we are.
I'm unsure of the intended audience of this podcast. For me, it's anyone who cares about FE and wants to learn more about its leaders. But for those, there would be quite a few leaders on the precipice of a cultural review. That'd be on the precipice of a strategic plan. We recently heard at the AOC, we heard you and Neil and Andrew discuss combining your values with your strategic plan and the power of that. So I think if the audience is listening, your ability to involve your community in crafting your purpose, your mission and your values, we would both agree, I think is invaluable.
It has absolutely made something that can be very dull and dry live and breathe.
Do you have any values that get coupled with that?
Yes, and they're values that came out of the exact same discussion. So again, they're not my values, but they do align. So we have a set of 6 values.
Yes.
And we're doing some work now that we're sort of 2 years in, about how we shape culture. That was the focus of the discussion that we had at the AOC conference in our breakout session, actually. We have a set of values, and they have come from our staff, and again, they were voted on. So we know they're what people feel are the right values to represent Nottingham College.
So what are those values and what do they mean to you?
Okay, well, as I said, they were crafted by staff. I didn't come up with them. They came out of the same staff event that we did the whole strategic plan by. So there are 6 of them, and they spell a word that isn't a word, but that's how I remember them. Collaborative, agile, trusted, inclusive, nurturing, and aspirational.
My immediate take on those is they're incredibly modern.
Are they?
Well,
I've never even thought of them.
Agile, collaborative, these are all new language words, right?
Yeah.
They're not the old kind of passionate, little bit more new words. And that, I think, to me, is representative of where Nottingham College has been and where it's going.
Yeah.
Because that agility, if you've been through the mergers that you've been through, Agile's going to be that thing, a collaboration.
Yeah, we weren't, you see. We were very inward-looking and very, very hurt after... I mean, it's been a lot of mergers as well. It wasn't just one. One's bad enough, and it takes a lot of getting over. But the college had gone down from 7 colleges to 2 over a period between 2001 and 2011. So about 10 years of utter disruption and change and loss of identity, everything that goes with a merger. And then in 2017, the 2 last colleges standing, who were competing with each other, in the same city space, merged into one to become Nottingham College. So it was they were bruised. People were bruised and hurt. Running alongside all of that, 14 years of austerity, no pay rises. People were pretty hacked off and unhappy, and I completely understand why they'd got to that point. So there was a big job to do around building a set of values we could all believe in.
And you see where the nurturing comes from in that, right?
Yes, that's why that was there. It came out in the sessions in different words like kindness and so on. We settled on nurturing as one to put forward. But it was a word that described a lot of words that all meant the same sort of thing. And it was about as much thinking about nurturing our students as well as
works
staff,
across. It works across the spectrum of your involvement.
Yeah.
So we've talked a lot about the process you went through to identify those values. So how did you embed those values into the culture and organisation?
Well, we're doing more of that work now. We didn't focus on that massively. The first thing was to get the college in a happier place, to get people believing in the college, having a sense of pride in the college again, building our sense of identity. So it took 2 years. We felt we had to do that almost restitution job before we got to really thinking about culture. And culture is what we're actually homing right in on now. So we changed things behind the scenes in alignment with this, but we didn't go big on Katina or the actual words of the culture. But what I did, and I did this at 9 o'clock on my first morning, I told you I came in from a smaller, but not a small college, but a smaller college. And I wanted to get all the staff in one room and introduce myself, because they need to know that there's a human behind this role. And the previous management, they were dealing with COVID and all sorts of other things. I'm not being judgmental or pejorative. I just wanted to come in as me, which is a very people-focused leader of an organisation. I wanted to introduce myself. And I was gutted to discover I can't get everyone in one room.
You need to book that football
we're too
pitch.
big. We need a football pitch. So I had to do my introductory talk on Teams. And I thought, how do I introduce myself? So my first slide was, these are my values. So before we even got to this, I said what I stood for.
Yeah.
And the first one was integrity, that if I make you a promise, I will keep it. You can trust that I will stick to my word. You can trust that I will work hard and do a good job for you. And then a succession of other ones that I will communicate. I will give you clear messages about where we're going. You'll understand what my thinking is about things, and I will listen to you. And that I will value everybody in the college. I'll be whole college. I will care about every job and every person and every student. And I'll be customer focused, and I'll be professional in all that I do, and I will set high standards. And that's what you can expect of me. And to this day, I don't quite know how it landed, because the people listening were on the other side of their screens and I was sitting on the side of mine, but I felt it was important to introduce myself.
And by doing so, what I think you did there, and my interpretation of it, which could be wrong, is you said, I'm a values-based leader.
I did.
You can meet me where I am here.
Yeah.
And over time, we will make values that matter to Nottingham as a community.
Yes.
And I will put these values at the heart of what I do.
Yeah.
In addition to my own values, you
Yeah.
can't expect me to change mine. And I think a brave move. I think given the fact you probably needed a football pitch and all we had was teams.
Yeah.
To go out there and say, this is me, and expose yourself. You touched something really emotive for me at the beginning of that. You said people have got to know there's a person behind the role. When people attack me, they take my name out of it. So when I have an issue, and as a CEO, I face many issues.
How interesting.
They typically attack the role of a CEO.
Yeah, or say management. Yeah.
I've not had that one. I've just had the CEO.
Yeah.
They don't attack Guy Walker. They attack the CEO, and I find that dehumanising because I share in the values-based leadership. But I really like the fact that impactfully you've said culture will matter. It's subconsciously or consciously, right?
No, I did.
You've told them culture's going to matter.
Yeah.
These are my values.
Yeah.
I'm going to meet you where you are. We're going to get to your values, and we're going to get to the values of this college. And almost by being the leader that you are, you've started the process of embedding it. In that more recent period, what do we do now? Now that presentation's faded and people have come and gone. How do we embed the values present day?
Right, well, we started with the values that everybody has come up with. So we started there, and we did another all-staff thing, also at Notts County Football Club. There's not many
They're
places,
liking you.
well, there's not many places in even a city that will accommodate that many people round tables. You know, we've got the Motor Point Arena, but I don't want them in serried ranks. I want them talking to each other.
Yep.
So we took over Notts County again, and we started unpicking those values to say, well, what does this translate into? What does this mean in terms of behaviours?
Yes.
And then actions. How do we behave? How do we act? And we are right in the process now. We're just back out to consultation with staff about this, actually. What we wanted a sort of a culture charter to come out of it that we would all sign up to. What we've actually, because I don't like the word charter, we've gone with culture commitments. And again, if someone can come up with a better phrase for it, they can have a bottle of champagne. So I've
got a suggestion.
Have you? Wow.
Yeah, it's the Nottingham College rulebook.
Oh right, well, that sounds quite autocratic though.
If you take where it's come from, so Nike had these really cool. They weren't values. They weren't single words that meant anything.
Right, okay, I'll have to look.
Nike's book Shoe Dog talks about their rule book, and some of the things on it are really good. But it's a coffee-stained yellow bit of paper.
Okay.
So your typical rule book is a big formal policy. This was not that. So Nike was like, we are on the attack always. We are this. We will find a way. We are solutions focused. It wasn't rule books so much as behaviours that everyone can scribe to.
Yeah.
And Nike's little rule book with its coffee stain corner, which is like a little bit of it might be a rule book, but it's not a rule book.
Quirky then.
It's quirky, it's readable, it goes on the wall.
Yeah.
And it's probably just a person that embedded all of those values. And you almost see that rule book as this is a set of behaviours. Lots of people, when they talk about culture, you ask them to describe culture, they go, what is culture? Well, it's values. Okay, what is that? And you talk then about behaviours.
Beyond, absolutely.
It's your actions and your behaviours that represent it. So we're embedding it at the moment through going back out and we're creating our rule book. I haven't won my champagne there, that's fine. It's our commitments. So
I don't know. It'll be what it is when we're in the process of it at the moment. So staff have now until the end of January to come back and tell us, do they like how we've crafted what came out of the away day? What do they want to see that's different? So we're open to feedback, genuinely.
Such a commitment to have 1,500 people in one place, off the tools. It's very... I know as a leader of having 90 people, how expensive it is to have all of my team in one place. So I imagine that the cost of this and the perceived benefit is massive. So, and how... And this is a big question, having 6 campuses of varying different states. We know you've got some modern ones and some more... older campuses. How does culture differ from campus to campus at Nottingham College?
Well, it does. And I think culture is a really hard thing to pin down anyway, because we are, and we set out to be as well, we are in and of our place. So a campus in Baseford and that community is different from a campus in Highfields and that community, or one right in the middle of the city where we are today. But we build our sense of us by talking about the things that matter. In fact, it's a really difficult thing to explain because we haven't really pinned culture down. We haven't started reinforcing the messages, or we've got ideas for it to go on vinyls and posters and really start stamping it all around the college. And it isn't there yet. We're still working towards that. But a lot of the culture comes through the behaviours that you exhibit in your role as CEO, but then the managers reporting to you exhibit. And we've also been on a process of driving decision-making and culture downwards and giving ownership to people, but also setting the framework for within which it all operates as well.
This might help you because it helped me, because I've also been on my own journey with culture. Culture can never be watered down, it can only be improved. So culture needs to survive as a standard. And when it comes into contact with your different offices, it needs to be enhanced. You can't ever, so if you set the standard and it goes to, let's say it goes to Baseford, and Baseford water it down, that's when culture becomes a dividing line, because why do they get when we don't get this?
All right, so we've done it not in the name of culture, we've done it in the name of quality and standards. Yes. So we've set what we call campus benchmarks. So it's basically a big balanced scorecard. It takes all of the 10 strategic objectives that staff came up with, and it has a list for each of them of good practice. So what does this look like in terms of how your campus operates? And then once a term, so 3 times a year, we do this with the assistant principals for the campus. They sit with their teams and they rag rate themselves against the statements of good practice. And for each of the 10 objectives, they then come up with a colour or an outcome. And we've gone for, not exactly Ofsted, we've gone for outstanding good, what's the next one? Requires improvement or requires support, I think.
Yep.
So that is about us as a senior leadership team knowing where we need to address things or put extra support in. But anyway, long story short, they all do this. They then come into business review meetings where we sit down with them and go through these RAG ratings. And what comes out is a heat map.
Yep.
For the whole college, campus by campus, so we can see where the threads are across the 10 objectives, where we need to intervene, do more work, help, support, get things better ourselves centrally, and where things are really working well. And that, again, all aggregates up to, it's it's not a heat map, it becomes a donut then.
The Nottingham donut.
We have donuts, and the donut then is what we show to governors, and this shows the complexion of the organisation changing term by term by term. And we wanted to see more. We had no outstanding in term 1. We had some good, a lot of requires improvement, and then some needing support. We've moved that now. We've got some outstanding. Good is better. Yeah. There's less support. There's almost no. So the shape and colour of the donut has shifted over time, and I can demonstrate that. So that is culture, I suppose, turned into behaviours and actions, heat mapped across the college, and then I can look at this by objective, by good statement of good practice, by campus, by subject if I want, by professional service, for the college as a whole.
I can tell you how that makes your leaders feel. So by the very nature of my role, I spend a lot of time engaging with leaders within FE. There's some senior and some semi-senior and some on the way to be senior. And the level of empowerment that Nottingham places into its managers, and I won't speak for all of them, I'll speak for the ones that I spoke to. Through that standard setting, they get clear objectives. They get clear behaviours they need to model. They get clear things they can achieve. They get a clear sense of, tracking all the way back to what we do, purpose. Are they hitting the mission? Are they absolutely doing it? And I can tell you, not for the first time I've told you this, but that is felt throughout the waves of Nottingham College.
Well, that's good. That's good to hear.
I can hear it.
Yeah, it comes out in our staff survey as well. So we're on the 3rd year of moving up quite sharply, actually. So we have other measures. We know we're making a difference, that this is all having impact.
You have to justify it, and it works, and you feel it. And I'm sure it will be felt by the students, because the whole intent or purpose of this culture is yes, to make you a brilliant employer, which I'm sure you are, but also to make that brilliant employer provide its services, which is a brilliant student experience.
Do the right thing in the right way to unlock potential through learning. Everything goes back to the strategic plan, to the objectives, and through that to our ultimate mission, our purpose.
I wish it was that easy for everybody. It is. You make it sound like it is a walk in the park. So I don't want Janet to downplay the scale of what she has achieved and what she's working through, because the way you make it sound is too easy. For our listeners and anyone listening to this, it's not as easy as this. But if you set out to do it and you try, because you would have had setbacks on this, right?
Oh, of course, yeah.
There will be times when you thought, that's not gone well, or that message hasn't landed.
Then you change it then, don't you?
Yeah, but always under that shining light. You can never compromise.
No, I can honestly say that this is 2.5 years of work, and it has felt at lots of points like wading through treacle. You come into an unhappy college and you're trying to turn it into one that is forward-looking and a pride in itself and in a much happier footing. You do hit all sorts of bumpers along the way, and it has felt like wading through treacle. But when you actually stop and take stock and you realise that all these little things that you're doing, so long as you keep your eye on the purpose while you're here and you drive everything back to that, it's just been about lining up ducks left, right and centre. But there's been certain other things that your question made me think of this actually, around culture and about empowerment. Because one of the things we had when I very first came was a lot of non-compliance, and I couldn't understand it. PDRs weren't coming in, progress reviews for students weren't being done. I said, why is none of this happening? I was used to a much better ordered college where there was high compliance, and I had a look at the role of the heads of faculty, and I could see straight away they were trying to lead 20 or 30 people. So that's why PDRs weren't done.
You haven't got the time.
30 PDR. It's ridiculous. So obviously it was clear we needed to put more people in, more curriculum managers needed to go in. Austerity had taken too many out.
Yes.
And the way I did it was I got the heads of faculty in a room, and this was quite early doors. I think I was much less than a year in at this point, and I just said, I want to talk to you about how your role is working, because it isn't working. There are things that are going wrong, and this is what I can see, but I don't think it's your fault. I think it's the structure you're operating in. So I said, I've agreed with the executive leadership team, we've got a brilliant chief finance officer. He's like, I think he's a magician, not an accountant. He found me $750,000. I said to them, I'm going to give you this. I've done the background work. I know how many people you sit over, how you line manage them. I know how much jobs cost coming in. We can give you all of that, but you can effectively, for your curriculum area, work out how many more people you need, but you've got to share this between you, because the pie is the pie. You've got a pie, it's 750k big, but that's all you've got. And you can do what you want with it. But I want smaller spans of control.
Yep.
I want deadlines being hit. I want students being cared about. I want progress reviews done on time. And I want staff to feel that they've got access to good management instead of telling me they can never get hold of somebody when they need to.
Yeah.
So I said, I don't mind what it looks like. You will know what the answer is for your area. And I'll tell you what else I did talking to them. I said at the start, I'm going to talk to you about your role and how it's going, because there's some things that aren't quite right. And I want you to tell me in just a word how you're feeling right now.
Oh dear, brave.
They said, well, yeah, but I knew it would be different later. So they said things like scared, worried, trepidatious, concerned, unhappy, all sorts of things. And I said, well, that's understandable, because it is a bit of a difficult conversation. I said, I'll give you my word. I'm excited, because we're talking now about opportunity, about changing it and changing it for the good. So it was a bit of a powerful session, but it was one of those turning points for the college. And that group of people, to their absolute credit, this was May, they did the work. The first thing, 2 of them turned up at my office the next morning and said, can we give ourselves a pay rise? I said, it's your 750k. You can do exactly what you want. But will it reduce your span of control? Will it lead to compliance? Will progress reviews be done on time? Will you be more available to your staff? And if you won't, that's not your answer, is it? But you need to go and think about it.
I had this story from both sides, and it was brilliant. I think
didn't know you knew about it.
I did. I've heard it twice.
Oh, blimey!
And it's the power of empowerment.
Yeah, that's all
right?
it is.
And
it's driving culture down by letting people take ownership of it.
But you, in that conversation, for the way that I perceive it, is that we've told them there's a problem.
Yeah.
We've told them we have a possible solution.
Yeah.
We have a way to fund your solution.
Yeah.
But you've got to make that choice.
Yeah.
And if you can't, we're not going to make it for you.
Yeah.
Right?
It's your answer.
It's your answer, and you'll be held to account to this new standard regardless of whether you accept it or not.
Yeah.
But they got given the choice and they had to deliver it. And that level of empowerment.
Yeah. They learned about on-costs. They didn't know on-costs existed.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well done, Andrew, for finding that down the back of the sofa. If he could come and rifle my sofa, can I borrow him for a day? That'd be great.
I just said we've got no choice. There were certain things in the first year we had to get to a pay award because the past had been so torrid, no pay awards. There was no option not to do it. So I think sometimes you just have to be brave as a leader and say, I know there is no budget for this, but we have to make some things happen now.
Yes.
And I also think there's another simple rule. I just think my life's full of really simple things that probably aren't. But another simple thing is write it down. Commit to it. Then go and make it happen. Find a way.
Halfway to the plan if you've written down the problem.
If you've written it down and you've committed to it, and then the other brave thing you can do is go and tell everybody in the college you're going to do it.
That's called commitment.
I know. And then you really have to make it happen.
So I know there's a couple of college leaders this year running a deficit budget, and it sounds to me like your advice is be brave. It's going to be okay. If you've got a really good plan, you've written it down, and you've communicated it, it's all right. You're going to get there.
If you're doing the right things, and I, alongside this, that wasn't the only thing, but I was talking to them about we need to grow the college. I came in and I could see it was about £20 million below where it should be for the size of its environs and the population reach it has, and the nature of the need in Nottingham as well when you look at school results, etc. So I wasn't sure how we were going to do it, but I knew we had to. And I also knew that if we grew, we could start affording more of this. So out of this as well, I said, and we have to grow.
Absolutely.
We have to get our numbers up. So that's how we're going to afford it. So how we're going to do it.
Will pay for itself.
Yeah.
Growth in the right direction will pay for itself. And I think that even businesses and colleges are closely aligned in that, is sometimes you can spend too much to get that growth, but other times growth in a steady and sustainable way will yield long-term results for the organisation. So how do you think other education leaders can embed culture? What would be your advice to someone who's setting out on this journey? What one thing they can do to help embed the culture?
One thing?
Just one.
Well, write a statement that means something. Like our purpose.
That's it. Just write the statement.
Write it down. Say,
something.
This is us. This is what we're about. Or better still, get people to tell you this is us and this is what we're about, which is what the way around we did it. And I do talk a lot to staff about being in and of our city and being an answer for Nottingham, because we are. We're a solution for Nottingham. We're a driver. There's lots of phrases bandied about for FE, things like we're the anchor institution, but they're used as phrases, whereas I want it to be real. It's no good if it's just a phrase. We literally have to be changing lives. We really have to reach out to the people who need us. We really have to get them through their qualifications and teach them well and build their confidence and help them to develop the right attitudes, the right behaviours. If we do all of that, we've really made a difference. We've started to, it does. It drives everything.
Culture is the engine of growth, is what you heard me slightly mumble there. And you can feel in the passion of the words that you're saying. Write it down, make it mean something. Ideally, get them to write it down, just to distill it. Get them to write it down.
It's kind of what we're doing at the moment with our culture commitments or rule book or whatever it ends up being
I'm not winning my champagne. I'll relent.
Well, we'll see.
But I recommend Nike's Shoe Dog to anybody.
I will go and read it.
How important, and I get the sense this is a 10, if it is out of a number, how important do you find a values-driven approach to leadership?
It's everything, isn't it? It's just everything. But the other thing that comes with it is it can't just be values that are just, a bit like we've just talked about, it can't just be values that are written down on a page. You have to make them live and breathe. They have to be real.
There's no dust on this.
I think for me, when I talk to people right on day one at 9 o'clock about my values and how I would lead the organisation, I wasn't making it up. I wasn't selling a proposition. I was telling the truth. This is me. And there's some good things in here, but the stuff that's harder is standards and professionalism, because I'm driving that as well. You can rely on I'll tell the truth, I'll deliver on my promises, that I'll talk to you openly and all of that, and I'll care about every single person in the college. All of that's real. But so is I'm not putting up with anything shoddy, or we're going to become a very professional organisation. We're going to win national awards. We're going to have a big sense of pride in ourselves.
Authenticity is also key here.
It's critical. Don't make it up. Don't try. And I think humans are evolved to spot people who are just positioning themselves. We can see it. It's
your subconscious telling you what your conscious should already know. And as a leader, I would also say, trust your gut.
Now, a lot.
Sometimes you say trust your gut. Sometimes there's another rule in leadership, which is you don't always have to act. And there's two counterintuitive rules. One is that says act quickly. The other that says you don't always have to act. And the two are at juxtaposition. What I find is sometimes I don't act deliberately and I hold and I wait and it solves itself. And other times I act decisively with limited information. But those two sometimes seem quite challenging to combine them together.
I don't think that's challenging. I do that all the time.
But it's about that authenticity. And then you can tell when someone is acting out of character. Whereas I feel like in this conversation and others I've had with you, it's always authentic.
Horribly authentic.
Yes. To some people, I imagine it would be a bit too strong, but to the people that it matters to those that are closest to you, that are trying to make this place a fantastic place to work, that they are drawn to it, like I've forgotten the word, fireflies to light, right? Moths to light. It's a good leader, the way that you come across, the authenticity, the values-led, that sort of pulls people into this almost vortex, and they take you along with you. And then that's why I was talking about sometimes not having to act, Because sometimes people think, oh, they're hesitant or they're waiting or they've acted too quickly. And it's all part of the parcel of reading a person and knowing how true they are to their true self. And that's where I really think values come into it. I've got an interesting question. I think all of these, some of them are interesting and all of them are interesting, right? I should say they're all interesting.
We wrote them.
Who's in charge of culture at Nottingham College?
We all are.
And that's it. That's all I needed to hear.
Yeah.
That's the end of the segment on culture, and
Okay.
I think there's some really good takeaways for anyone who's been listening to that.
Good,
I think some of the authenticity is screamed through, the values have come through. I'm really excited to talk to you about what Nottingham College offers its staff. We've got to talk, because all of this is great.
Yeah.
The culture of Nottingham College is absolutely brilliant. How you take that culture, how you take your organisation, and what we now offer people. So we call it employee value proposition, not going to call it EVP for the audience. So what are the top 3 benefits that you think you offer to your employees?
We've got a focus on them as people. I think that's really important. I think people drive everything in an organisation like us that's student-led, that requires teachers, that requires support. So we have got a lot of additional benefits around well-being. We won a Beacon Award for staff and student well-being. And focus on mental health. So that's something we've really gone after, investing in our staff in lots of different ways. So around the person, I mean, it's really hard in FE, on an FE budget, to do this brilliantly. And I'm sure we don't reach commercial standards in many different ways, but where we can, and in every way we can, we try to support our staff. So we celebrate success. There's lots of, we've got long service awards now. We've got an annual Star Awards. We try to involve people where we're up for national awards. It's not me that goes to collect them. The staff go to collect them. It's things like that, allowing people to take ownership and have pride in the things they've engendered for the college. And into all of that, we have worked so hard on pay and reward as well as recognition. So we've had sector leading pay awards for the last two years at least, so 7.4% when the sector was averaging about 5.5% when the extra money finally came in from government after more than a decade of austerity. 5.1% for staff this year. We've introduced staff bonuses, and that was such a big cultural thing for this college. We announced our first bonus at the end of term party, what we called our jingle mingle. We're a very diverse college, so we steer away from any religious titles. We can't use that now, actually, because Boris Johnson's crew in the House of Commons in Parliament, Downing Street, all their Christmas parties during COVID were called jingle mingle. So it's tainted now for us.
We can't jingle mingle next year.
So we're now festively fusioning. So we've had 2 festive fusions and 1 jingle mingle. And at the very first get together that end of term in December, I think people came because they were curious. The college had never had anything like that before. It was sort of a party, staff coming together. And I did a really short speech just saying how proud I was of where we'd come. We just bagged our first Ofsted good grade at that point as well.
Bagged.
Literally.
Great expression.
I know. That was December. So we had this party and I announced a £250 bonus, which was as much as we could afford.
Which is utterly unheard of.
And it was for everybody. And it goes back to the whole college value where it didn't matter what job you were in, you got £250 apart from the executive leadership team, because I said we cannot award ourselves a bonus, so we're not having it. But everybody else, no matter what their job, from the lowest paid person to the highest paid person, all got £250. And do you know what? People cried. They were very emotional about having been recognised in that way, and it mushrooms up to quite a sum of money when you're doing that for 1,400 staff at any given time. But
plus the employment benefits, plus the on costs, as we're all learning about on costs.
Yeah.
For me, what I love is that no matter the role, that level of recognition.
Yeah.
Now it will make a huge impact to someone on a lower income, and less so to someone on a larger income. It's still a nice gesture. That recognition of well done and thank you.
Yeah.
And also, When you extrapolate that number out, £250 times 1,400
it's a lot of money.
massive amount of money. I tried to do Christmas presents this year on a budget. It was a lot less than that.
Well, the way it calculates is if you're a half-time employee, you get half of it. So it's not quite as generous as it looks. But nonetheless, for an FE college to pull that together was pretty difficult to do. In the second year, it went to 500, but that's because we grew. So, and staff basically helped us fund their bonus.
Totally makes sense why Nottingham is no longer my biggest customer. Their staff retention must be incredible at this point. So fantastic. In your experience, why do all people, join Nottingham College?
They join us, I hope, because of the values that we have and what we stand for and what we do. I talk to every single induction group that comes through the college. So all new staff have an induction day with us. And I talk to absolutely everybody and I talk about our purpose. I think it's more not even why they join us, but why they might stay, why they might value being an employee of Nottingham College, that we care as much as a very, very tight budget allows us to care. We invest back in our staff. And it's things that aren't necessarily directly linked to money as well. I'll tell you one of the things we did at Christmas. The way Christmas landed, we gave people an extra 2 days holiday. So there was no point really in opening on a skeleton staff for 2 days. So why don't we just give everybody 2 days holiday? And the people who aren't working on those days anyway, we'll pay them as if they were. So we costed that up when we did that. And then we also said at the end of the holiday, why don't we say to people, you can work from home, because so many people have got childcare issues around that last couple of days. Then everyone gets the best possible break they can. Everybody comes back fighting fit, ready to go, enthusiastic, because they're properly rested. So it's that sort of thing as well.
We combine that. So we take properly rested, and then on the first week of the year, we capture every employee's, through our line managers and sub-managers, every employee's goals and dreams into one big spreadsheet.
Oh, do you?
And what we do then is we
pinch that.
It's useful. 1,400 people makes this seem difficult.
Yeah.
We then match what they want to achieve that year to our employee benefits.
Right, okay.
So, I mean, last year, because I haven't looked at this year, I'm really sorry, team. Last year, everyone wanted to buy houses. So, as a business, we went and found a mortgage broker that would give preferential rates to our employees.
Right.
Okay, so if you could improve a single area of EVP, what is the thing that you would offer your staff if money was no object?
Right, well, that's it. That's the thing. It would be pay.
Yes.
Because I think for what we ask of staff and the breadth of the job they do and the importance of the job they do, they should be better paid.
Simple.
Simple as that. And I think a sector that's gone backwards in real terms for 14 years has been grossly disinvested in, and yet the work we do is hugely important.
So we'd close and bridge that gap between industry as well, which is one of the biggest challenges we face as FE. Okay, and over time, it's my belief that EVP changes. What do you do to make sure that your offering is relevant and up to date?
Well, we just stay connected.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Staff
We're in lots of networks. Staff feedback. Yeah, everything. Listening to staff, talking to staff. I'm just exploring the idea of setting up some sort of staff council, because one of the things I've grappled with is being in a bigger organisation. And to be fair, in any college, staff will always say the senior leadership team and the principal in particular are not visible enough, as if you could possibly spend your time just wandering the corridors. It's not that type of a job, is it? A lot of the job's meetings, reading documents, talking to boards. It's a very busy and packed diary all the time, and I don't see the point of being just the person who wanders about. You've got to do something meaningful with it. So I make a lot of effort to attend events, so anything that's students led. Later today I'm going to see a student dance group perform. So that's happening around lunchtime. In fact, that's my second next thing in the diary today. I'm going to an event that celebrates high-flying A-level students. That's coming up in a week or two. I go to fashion shows. I go to choral events. So I really do make an effort to be visible, through the things students are doing in particular. And I do a roadshow every year, and I do Teams calls and updates for staff through, an imperfect digital mechanism. But I think I need to reach out more.
Yep.
And it's not been the number one thing for me. There's been a lot to sort over the last couple of years. But now as we're getting more into the culture piece, I've got to do more on that. I've got to be listening to staff more, understanding more. The pace needs to shift onto everything culture driven. So I'm going to set up something, and again, we're playing about with names for this, so an employee communication group or a staff council.
Is there another bottle
like
on offer
that.
if I give you a suggestion?
If you give me a good suggestion this time.
It's called an employee forum.
An employee forum, that would be brilliant.
Investors and people love it.
Yeah.
And having an employee forum that's from a diverse campus background, employee forum.
So you've got a positive vibe from me on that one.
Half a bottle opened and potentially swigged at first will be my prize and award for that.
That could well happen, actually. I do like that.
Yep.
So one that rotates around the campuses. The other thing I've just done is we meet as an ELT twice a week, so we're very connected as a team. Yep. This is part of how I lead and run things, and I find it really valuable to sense check decisions and thoughts and keep on top of everything through the team. But we meet here in my office in the middle of the city. We've got 6 campuses, so we're going to start pushing our ELT meetings out to different campuses.
It does help with visibility.
So we naturally see people. Yeah, it's been all hands to deck really for 2 years. The pace has been absolutely immense, but I think it's time to think a bit differently about how we are part of the body of staff at the end of the day, aren't we? But so we can't be locked away. We've got to be out there more.
I think it's indicative of you as a leader and what we've learned so far about you, that the first thing you do when your head comes above the parapet is think of the people and think of being more visible. And I think that is absolutely, it harks back to the authenticity of this entire conversation, but also your passion for the people of Nottingham College and the people of Nottingham wider. So that is just listen. If you want to know what your people want, shut up. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen to them and you will hear what they want from you. And that's it. So we've got this really compelling Nottingham College summarised EVP offering. This is what we put out there. And at its very core, we will pay you as best we can.
Yeah.
We will provide you benefits that are fit for you and purpose. And we will empower you to be the best version of yourself. That is incredible to distill all of that down into that, and that's how it feels. And I think that's how it feels to anyone listening to this.
Yeah, and come and help us make a difference for our city, for our people, because it's a very valuable job.
This conversation now shifts a little bit, Janet, and unfortunately it's all about you. So I want you to answer this about your leadership style and where you're coming from, because leadership is intrinsically personal. It relates back to that individual and their style. So why picking your leaders is massively important. And that's your leaders both at the top level and the bottom level. So everyone technically who comes through your organisation is a leader, but this is all for you. We already know your leadership style. So what leadership principle do you value the most? The thing that you hang your hat on. I'm known for being this. So you're a values-based leader. We've talked all the way through that. What's that thing?
Right. Can I have 2? Because I think there's 2 things in my profile that I know this. I've done a million leadership assessments. And in fact, one that I did in my 30s, a very long time ago now, nailed me so perfectly that I've quoted it ever since, and it was a Haymack Beer model, and I had 3 particularly high aspects of my leadership style. I was very democratic, very team focused, very willing to listen to other people's views, and I'm very affiliative, so I will always try to get to an answer that people can buy into. And I will look at different people, the way they operate, how they think, and I will try to bend and work their views in and respond to them as the individuals they are. So it won't surprise you that that's 2 quite people-focused thing. But I will say as an aside, the other really massive bar on the chart was authoritarianism. So I'm quite bossy. And I'm clear about where I'm going. I'm decisive.
Bossy is a really challenging word, right? When you think bossy, you think someone on the hip shouting at you, right? Being authoritarian is not being bossy.
No, I know. It's not autocratic. It's authoritative.
And to lead an organisation at the scale and size that you do, and actually Ben Francis said this about Gymshark. He said at the beginning, you've got to be maniacal. You've got to be authoritarian. To get the things done that are hard and difficult, yes, you can listen. Yes, you can combine everyone's thoughts and opinions. But you do have to make a bloody decision. You've got to go, right, no, we are doing it this way. And I heard that familiarity, that piece of trying to find a shared answer. The challenge is you've got to find a shared answer as a leader of a college and as an individual. So I know this bit's about you, but you've always got to keep the college's best interests at heart. And that's the really hard bit. So I wouldn't call you bossy, but authoritarian and getting the result right for you and for the college.
Yeah, I can drive things through.
I feel that.
Make my mark. Yeah.
So probably in keeping, you're going to have more than one, but role models for you within the further education space at the moment?
Well, there's a couple of FE leaders who I really admire. A colleague I work with who we look nothing alike, but Rachel Nichols at IEG, we are like twins in how we think. It's almost spooky. And I think her heart is absolutely in the right place. She's really super bright. She really drives the college. She shapes it, brings people along with her. She's fantastic. And I worked with Rachel for about 7 years. She was deputy when I was CEO over there. Okay. And she's absolutely spot on. But Deb's Gray at Hull, who's absolutely transforming another college that has had a difficult past and is doing it with grace and humour and intellect and an absolute care and passion for her people. Karen Buchanan up at Burnley College, who is, again, just fantastically enthusiastic, creative. And Neil Coker, who I've worked with more recently down at Barnet and Southgate, who is also a culture fan and is going after that and really wants to shape his organisation in the best way, and is doing it, again, with passion. And I think the common thread there is I love people who are passionate about FE, who are in there and who are making a difference. And someone who thinks really big and differently, like Gary Headland at Activate Learning, is fantastic because he's also working off a massive grand scale of an organisation. But
2,500 people.
Yeah, he's cracked the visibility thing. So I need to go and talk to him and find out how he does that. He's really good. He's a very visible leader.
I'll get Gary on the podcast. Couple of targets on my list there to have these conversations with. And I think for me, you've got a type. I'm going to tell you that.
Yeah,
I know most of those individuals personally, and I think from my perspective, you pick that passion and
I love it.
Those fiery, driven individuals that have dreams, massive, but real plans.
Yeah, not frightened to go for it either.
I think dreaming so big sometimes can lead you to find yourself a bit disillusioned with where you are today, and that lack of. You've got to make a plan to get there. Yeah. I've got a big thing on the wall that says goals without a plan are just a dream.
Yeah.
And that's actually what you've got to make. You've got to make it reality for your communities and for everything else.
Make it happen.
Are you undertaking any personal development within leadership at the moment, or are you through that?
No, but we are as a leadership team, because we've got a couple of members who are relatively new. We are going to do something as a team. Yep. And a couple of years when I very first arrived, we were small at ELT at that point, we did something together as well. But I've done a lot, I'm quite old now, guys, so I've done a lot of leadership training, and I'm a very pragmatic person, so anything that's too theoretical and navel-gazing and it feels doldrum slow to me. I like to learn things on the fly, and I would say I've probably learned more from getting in there and doing and watching other people, because when you watch other people, you can see what not to do as well as what to do.
Some people are a masterclass in how not to do it, right?
I've worked with a few.
You can shade. You can learn quite a lot from seeing things and interpreting it in a way that's more beneficial to you. Looking forward, what do you think some of the challenges that leaders are going to face in coming times? Okay,
well, in FE, financial woes are going to continue. That's not changing anytime soon. No. I think AI and the whole nature of the world is going to start to shift. Gen Z sees the world very differently from my generation. They have different wants and desires, different priorities, and education's going to need to shape up to that. Yeah. And Gen Alpha coming through, my little granddaughter, digitally active from, being a tot. trying to respond to that with people who are not natural to those age groups is going to be difficult, I think. What else would I say? And endless change. That is, I actually, if we go right back to the start of this conversation when I talked about doing my dissertation about bringing IT into business, I bunged some questionnaires out to all sorts of colleges and got a bunch of answers back. And I said, what's the most difficult thing? What are the barriers? And a phrase came back that stuck with me all my career. And it was, in FE, our only constant is change. And
I've seen it more than once.
It's just so perfect. We're just constantly battling policy, change of direction, change of funding, change of rules.
It's no wonder you're agile in your values,
we
right?
have to be agile.
And change, I think the problem with change for me is that it comes with it anxiety. It comes with it a lack of plan. It can bring some stress. It can bring a whole host of things. But change, well managed, well messaged, well delivered, is fine.
It's not something to be frightened of, but when it's constant policy churn, constant changes to rules, there's never consolidation, and actually it absorbs a huge amount of resource because all your resource goes into managing that change, changing your systems, your processes, your rules, your paperwork, what you do with students. And if we could just be allowed some time to actually consolidate what we've done, FE would work a whole lot easier.
Let the changes sink in?
Yeah, just a bit of that, not to stop. I don't want to be moribund, or I'm not arguing for that. I think, constantly trying to be better and improve what we do, that's all good stuff. But to just have a playing field that just stood still for 2 seconds would not be a bad thing. But again, I don't think that's our only constant is change. It's not going to be any different, is it? Tomorrow's leaders are going to have to cope with that.
Yeah, I think they will. And I think with that little bit of advice, there's some stuff in there. Learn from people. You had a lot of role models.
I did,
which is huge. But also then looking at what those role models and other people don't do very well, that you can then take your strengths and play to your strengths as well. I think so many people will try and pick something up that they're not very good at and do it. Now, I understand forcing yourself to do something that you don't like, but doing something you're actively not good at when there are other people better placed to do it, don't be afraid to delegate some of the bits to make sure that the overall outcome is achieved. And one of the biggest challenges I think people face is that failure to delegate some of that change out to people that want to handle it and go through it. So yeah, leadership's a challenge. What would be your advice to leaders, both in and out of Nottingham? I'm sure people will listen to this, on what to do to progress.
Well, I don't know, because I never set out with a plan. I'm not particularly motivated by status or money. It's nice that you get rewarded well for taking on more responsibility, but it was never in my head, I must be in this role by this date and I've got to have this salary by this point in my life. I never really thought of it like that. For me, it was all about staying interested, going the extra mile, committing properly, going at everything with a massive enthusiasm and picking up the opportunities as and where. And if your head's above the parapet, you get picked for things.
Say yes to the opportunity when it comes knocking.
Don't just bury yourself away. And that way as well, you keep your life and your job interesting.
Perfect. And that is all about you, and it's finished. We are done with leadership. Thanks so much for listening, and what I hope you've got from that is loads of Janet's views. I hope you understand Nottingham College better as an employer, as a place to work, as what it does for its students and what it does for the city of Nottingham. But I also hope that you have enjoyed Janet and Janet's career and all the things that she's done, and you take some stuff from this that's really useful to you. So thank you very much.
Thank you.